Assalamu alaikum.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear, 5 by 5.
We go. Alhamdulillah.
Not only can I hear you, I can see you.
There we go. All right. That's great. That's where we want to be. We want to be heard and seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just like every other kid on the planet.
Yeah.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. It's still wonderful to see you and meet with you again. I almost died a week ago, but Allah decided otherwise. I probably have to stay here for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stay here and make the best of it.
Indeed.
Along with the rest of us who are trying to make the best of God's Rahman and Rahim grace. We've been talking about this Rahim grace. I mean, everybody understands the Rahman grace for the most part. You got sunshine, you got water, you got food, you got shelter, you got life, your heart's beating, you got that Rahman grace rolling. Okay, that's in your favor. But there's Rahim grace. And the difference between Rahman grace and Rahim grace, as far as I can say, has something to do with the difference between destiny and fate. Okay. So and this is what we've been talking about. And it's really, I think, a significant topic because it helps people to differentiate between, how shall I say, what is beneficial and what is harmful. Okay. If you don't get this Rahim grace, you can't make the differentiation except on the fundamental basis. If you go to a more sophisticated basis, you're not informed enough. You see, to appropriate that Rahim grace means you have to be informed. You have to study. You have to do what the Quran instructs us to do. You see, and this is something that, how shall I say? Let's see, where was that? No, the wrong one. Oh, there we go. Yeah. This is something that requires effort. It requires jihad. All right. It requires struggle. I'm not talking about militant jihad. That's very, very different here. And so I think what's happening right now in terms of world events, especially in the Middle East, is we're able to differentiate. And I want to use this conversation, if we can, dear brother, alhamdulillah, to differentiate between destiny and fate. Because it seems to me, having some appreciation for the difference that we're trying to define for our listeners and for ourselves, it seems to me that the Palestinians are suffering fate rather than destiny. Now, destiny, you can say, all right, well, you can maybe they superimpose one on the other on certain occasions. But if you accept the premise that destiny is something that leads to benefit and evolutionary production of good fruit, if you will, then that's what we were talking about. Fate, on the other hand, is something that's more, shall I say, less productive and can lead to fitna and chaos and all this sort of thing, so that the fruit is destroyed because the seed is destroyed. The seed that produces it in all walks of life and all disciplines. So if you want to get to that point, you have to be informed. And many of our brothers and sisters are not fully informed of what's going on in the Middle East. They're not fully informed of what's going on in COVID. Otherwise, our alims would not have given the advice to jam yourself in a bus, shoulder to shoulder, on the way to the mosque, and then stand 6 feet apart. I mean, that's just stupid. That's just stupid. It's a demonstration, an overt demonstration of mass stupidity and foolishness. You see,
Mhm.
foolish. I mean, the stupid you can't teach him. The fool is learning all the wrong information. So how are they going to get Rahim grace? How are they going to get the grace that invites the protection of Allah according to the universal principles? According to universal principles of the law. This is just wrong. If you go at this whole thing with some sort of uninformed bias, you're going to invite more chaos, more destruction. You're
Absolutely.
going to walk right into the pit of hell as the result of your fate. That's your fate. You're going to be fatalism. And then, there are a lot of Muslims who are adherents of fatalism. They just throw up their hands, like I told you last week in our brief discussion of what was going on in Yemen rather. They have the little shisha parties. They throw in some gut with that shisha, and they all get high, and they think they're having a good time. Well, they are having a good time, but it's not Allah's will. It's their will.
Right.
And while they're doing that, their children are suffering and going to the emergency room because they're not being supervised. Well, there's a difference. The Rahim grace is kind of like this. If you're actively participating in the true jihad, then the angels are going to continue actively with their supervision and with their intervention in order to protect you. All right? You might be on your way to do something, and that angel will remind you something and say, oh, don't turn, don't left, stop, And if you are sensitive enough to stop, then you will prevent the harm. Okay. And if you're not sensitive enough to stop, to listen, to receive the guidance, you're going to invite fate. You're going to invite the inverse of destiny. You're going to invite the inverse of increased grace, increased peace, increased comfort, increased positive developments in your aspirations as a child of our source creator, if you want to put it that way. Which many people do, especially in the Christian world. Oh, we're all children of God, all that sort of thing. Well, you and I know that's not quite true. And the Quran says, no, God doesn't have any children. He has creatures. And he owns us all.
Right.
He owns them all. He's in absolute control. And he's got a plan. Allah has a plan. It's very, very, very simple. He makes a covenant. And his covenant is say, hey, you do what I say, and I'll do what I say too. Okay, on your behalf. Okay.
How about that? Yeah.
If you don't do what I say, I'm still going to do what I say, but it'll be the inverse. Okay, you're inviting my wrath. You're inviting my hate. You're inviting the wrath of your enemies. There's no protection in that. People are waiting, and I'm sure there are people, these young Hamas fighters out there, I'm sure they're waiting for the angels to appear on the war zone, and throw their spears and pull their swords and ride with them into the Israeli mess. And they expected the whole Arab world to rise up with them. And, hey, that might have worked if it was organized. But there are too many suppositions here, too many expectations, false expectations, too much false hope, and it's not the right kind of jihad, you see. It's just not the right kind of jihad. In jihad, the Quran introduces jihad by telling us to, how do you say it? Avoid ignorance, get knowledge. It says investigate everything thoroughly so you can establish the right foundation. Why do you need that? Because you can't act appropriately unless you have the right foundation. And the whole point is to produce fruit. Well, it's what Isa called it. You'll know them by their fruit. So what fruit are they producing? Let's see. What fruit is produced by jumping into a bunch of kids at a concert and murdering them. There's no fruit in that. There's no fruit in that. It's obviously an evil deed, you see. And there's no justification Islamically. There's all kinds of justification if you assume the un-Islamic position, but Islamically, there's no justification for that kind of an approach to militant jihad if you have to raise the sword. No, 1,000 times no. No, that's Jahiliyyah. That's the way the Arabs were before Islam, before the Medina Constitution, before Allah gave Muhammad the license to show a political solution through the Medina Constitution, which was a kind of confederacy where we're all joined and all united to protect ourselves. Jew, Christian, Muslim, non-pagan. There's no religious segregation here. Everyone was included in that constitution. And that was, hey, that's the Sunnah. If I'm reading this correctly, brother, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm reading this history because I did as much of a thorough investigation as I possibly can, and it helped me to come to some conclusions, which is the foundation of my position. Okay, now if I'm wrong, may Allah correct me. May you correct me. Correct me now, Jesus. For God's sake, correct me, because lives are at stake. You see, lives are at stake. Innocents are being slaughtered because of this foolishness. They have not investigated thoroughly. People who are supporting Hamas do not know that Hamas does not represent Palestine. Hamas is the child of the Israeli secret intelligence groups. For God's sake, wake up! People, wake up! Wake up.
Yeah.
This is not preserving life. This is not producing fruit. This is doing the exact opposite. This is fate. This is not destiny. Destiny means to, well, as the army says, be all that you can be. Okay, Allah, I want to be all that I can be. And the Palestinians also want that, but they can't be all that they can be because they're oppressed. Is that Israel's fault? Is it? No, the Israelis are just opportunists. They're just opportunists, like any bacterial infection or viral infection. They're just taking opportunity of a sick body.
Well put.
Am I putting this right, brother?
Well put. Well put.
I'm so disturbed, like everyone else is, about what's taking place. Well, because this is.
See, what you're doing is correct. You're using the correct method for achieving the diagnosis and the solution. And you being a medical mind, I would expect you to come from that.
Of course.
Yeah, from that perspective.
Doctors have to be detectives.
Yeah, because one slight miscalculation could mean a person's life.
Yes, of course.
So when you said, and I'll let you continue, but I just wanted to make this point on a point that you made, and that is that what's happening in Israel on the part of the Israelis is opportunism.
Yeah.
They're taking advantage in the same way that in the fitwa, a virulent disease would take advantage of an opportunity in the system to take over areas of that system. And here's the clincher. If that cancer or whatever it might be gets an opportunity, now you might think it's just after your liver. You might think it's just after your stomach wall, you know, that, I have cancer of the esophagus, you might think that that's all that cancer is after, and it's satisfied once it completes its local mission. But the ultimate objective of that disease is to capture the entire body.
Yes.
So I'll speak more on that when it's my go.
Sure.
But,
I just want to try and bring my point home a little bit more firmly so that we can return to this theme that we've been discussing as expressed in Al Quran regarding the difference between destiny and fate. Because Muslims have been walking into fate, they've not been walking into destiny. Right. The destiny is to be all that they can be, to glorify their source creator. That's what we're supposed to do. And we're supposed to do this all in a spirit of peace, which is what Islam basically represents. And that's a balance between all these various polarities, all these dynamics that are constantly moving and going in our lives, in our body, in the political and social spheres and the educational sphere. These dynamics they're expanding and contracting just like the heart, expands and contracts. Well, but it's got to be balanced.
Yeah.
Yes, and we have to focus on that balance. Gosh, I was focused on my heart this last week. So some of this is coming from that experience.
Yes.
Okay, because I experienced the imbalance. All right. And when that happens, you can't go to that heart wants to, but something, whatever the fault may be, has to be corrected. Okay. If you're in this inverse position, pursuing fate, pursuing harm, creating the pretext for harm, for greater harm, which is what Hamas has just done, okay, then, and if the body's not organized, you see, there's no unity. Where's the Muslim unity here? It's all rhetorical. If there is any, it's rhetorical. Look what the Egyptians do. Oh, you can't come here. Jordanians, oh, you can't come here. No, you can't come here. You got to stay there and be slaughtered. And we oppose the slaughter with our tongue. That's not
You're
exactly.
hitting it on the head. You're hitting it on the head.
With that, we're going to oppose the slaughter with our tongue. But meanwhile, Al-Sisi, he's a Jew. He's placed there by Mossad 30, 40 years ago.
Yes.
All right. Look, Jordan, the king of Jordan, he's a Freemason. The king of Syria, a Freemason.
All right.
All right. Who are they cooperating with? Allah? Oh, if you want to accept that premise, okay. Well, they accept them as your leaders and support their rhetoric because they're cooperating with the opportunists. Which makes them opportunists themselves. Oh man, I like my lovely wife. I like this wonderful throne. I like these jet airplanes and all these things, this lifestyle.
Right.
I like
not going to jeopardize that.
Hey, they love their life.
Right.
Okay. Well, that may be a little bit of heaven, but probably all the heaven they're going to get.
Temporary.
It's temporary. So what's the long-term view here? It's very dangerous. And there's no reason to, other than the hadith, to expect any kind of intervention of a heavenly nature, okay, unless there's tawbah. Look, I had to, when you're sick, let's just say I'll try to put this in medical terms, and after I give this analogy, I hand the talking stick over to you. I smoked for 45 years. Stupid, foolish thing to do. But I was just a human being. I had my addiction problem there, okay? And it took a heart attack 5 years ago to make me stop, because there was an element of COPD in that, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, okay, which is a result of smoking. So, yeah, they intervened, they did a bypass surgery, and I've been okay for a number of years, but I still have this COPD because the COPD, this takes 7 to 14 years to regenerate the tissues and heal.
Residue, yeah.
Yeah, so I got this lingering problem from my previous sins, but I begged Allah's forgiveness, and then I did my best to improve my health, And I no longer smoked. It took a heart attack to stop me from smoking. Now it's taken another heart attack to make me appreciate the fact that I'm still alive even better. Okay. And why am I still alive? I'm still alive to have conversations like this. There's no other reason for me to be alive, except to maybe guide and help a few people that are within my sphere of influence under my right hand here to like Mahdi, to stay on the right path. That's all. There's no other reason we exist. I don't do anything productive anymore except for just share some ideas. So I'm here to express these thoughts. That's it. And to express them and bounce them off the informed agents of truth like yourself and others. Inshallah, next week we will have a discussion with Professor Ramahi.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Take that, the idea of the sacred space in this Rahim grace and why it's all important to be on the right path, the right footing, the right foundation. You can't do that without Tawbah. We're all going to make mistakes. We all have to correct those mistakes. If you don't correct those mistakes, there's no help from heaven. The only help from heaven will be for the individual who's involved with that errant part of the Ummah, whom Allah has specifically chosen to protect. And we have examples like that look at Musa, the story of Musa. That's an archetypical example. That child was set aside, protected, and delivered. Okay? Delivered to safety so that he could develop and be all that he can be. So that Rahim grace set aside from him, but that didn't set the whole Ummah aside.
Yeah.
No.
Doctor, hold that thought for one moment. I need about 3 minutes, and I'll be right back.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
The point I'm trying to make here is that of thorough investigation, you see, because without the thorough investigation, you cannot know the facts, and if you don't know the facts, you can't be guided, okay? Because the angels inform us in terms that we understand. And if we have a deficit of understanding, we cannot be informed in those areas that we do not understand. That means that if there's an area that lacks understanding on the part of the alim, that means that there's a deficit. There's a deficit there, and they cannot be informed. You see, so Hamas is acting on a false premise that is playing right into the hands of the opportunists. I've said this right from the beginning. You see, when I saw that, I said, oh, well, this is their Pearl Harbor moment. This is their 9/11 moment. This is going to work only for the benefit of the Jews, and not the Jews, but the Zionist Jews. There's a difference. We can't throw them all into the same bag. But that being said, most of the Jews are supporting the Zionist position by default. So that's also fate. So when they're put up for destruction, they will also go. There won't be any divine intervention on their behalf either. It just won't happen. Because the world Zionist, the cult, the secretive deep state that's now invested itself all over the globe through the Freemasonic and other institutions of the similar nature, because there are more than just the Freemasons involved here. They will destroy Israel just to rebuild it in their own image. All right, okay. That's what they do.
That's the scheme.
So they'll destroy the Palestinians first, and then they'll bring down Israel with it, because there'll be so much disgrace and everything from this coming slaughter. They'll be morally demoralized as well. And then a new, hey, is this Al-Daryal, the monster, this great big enemy of truth that's going to take over the world, been predicted for a long time? Well, probably, likely. And with all their wonderful magical tricks they can do with their G5 and all this electronic mimicry of reality, they can make people believe. The uninformed, they can make them believe, you see, whatever they want. And if they're promoting the biblical narrative, which has been misinterpreted, you see, then people will go along with this. And they say, oh, Mahdi's coming, the Christ is here. Let's go with it and we'll run with it. No, the Jews were wrong. Let's demote them and put in our own people under Vatican auspices, by the way, because, hey, he's the bishop of the real Messiah, right? So they're playing this game. It's a religious game. And they always use religion to control the masses. And these poor boys in their Hamas, their green, silly uniforms, you see, they're just a gang. And they, like all gangbangers, they believe what they're doing in what they're doing because they don't have any alternative. There hasn't been any alternative presented. Why? Well, there's no divine intervention here because there's no one with informed knowledge and wisdom enough to extricate them from this position. Okay? And there's no help for them. Well, where's divine help come from? I'll end with this. There was a lady who was sitting on top of the roof in the middle of a flood. You've heard this before.
Yeah.
And, the police came by and said, come on, get in the boat. And she said, no, God's going to help me. Then a neighbor came by and said, no, God's going to help me. A helicopter came by, no, thanks a lot, God's going to help me. And she drowns anyway. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. God's going to help. No, he ain't. We're supposed to help ourselves. We have to help ourselves. And all that additional grace comes by virtue of inspiration once we are on the right path following Tauba. Now, I could go into the history of Yasser Arafat and the Freemasons and his Mufti Jerusalem and creep and Pan-Arabism and all of that stuff that led to Saddam Hussein. If you don't know that narrative, shut up, dear listener. If you don't know that narrative, you don't know what you're talking about. Because all they've done is replace one evil with another one in order to control the opposition and to provide them the pretext that they now need to slaughter the Palestinians en masse, all right, without any resistance on the part of those who could help. Well, where's Allah's help come from? Well, he just sent it. The cop came. Lady said, oh, Allah's going to help me. The neighbor came, oh, don't worry, Allah's going to help me. Please, wake up, people, my brothers and sisters.
And when she finally met Allah, give us the end of that story.
He said, I sent help. I sent you help. I sent you the help. The problem here is the neighbors of the Palestinians are not helping. And when they did help during the Nakba, it was only for their own glory, individually, so they couldn't coordinate their military response, which fragmented their efforts and allowed the Israelis to pick them off one by one, a war of attrition. It wasn't difficult to do. The Egyptian Air Force was sleeping the night that they were attacked in 1967, this sort of thing. Lackadaisical attitudes. They were not doing their best. The Quran says you must do your best. If you want my Rahim grace, do your best. Don't play act. Do your best. Act. So, my dear brother, I'm sorry for my vehemence, but
that's all right. It's necessary.
I want to hand the walking stick back over to you and let you respond in kind, or whatever kind you have. Inshallah.
And I'll try my best to be kind.
Thank you.
I don't want to ruffle any unnecessary feathers in the YouTube audience.
Yes, of course.
But I begin also with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, calling on Allah to deliver, as always, the merciful benefits and the merciful redemption that humans crave. Allah doesn't need mercy for himself,
Mm-mm.
and Allah doesn't need to be redeemed.
Mm-mm.
It's humanity that needs both. And until the human being learns the major lesson of how to distribute both of those qualities to each other as humans, we're never going to be off of this roller coaster ride. That's all it is. It's a roller coaster ride. Keeps happening over and over because they plan it like that. And the ones who are actually planning the chaos are some of the most sophisticated chaos agents that the world has ever known.
Yeah.
And their signature behavior is that they are in quiet, out of view, behind the curtain support for both sides of the conflict. So people always ask me the question, well, you know, isn't it the Jews' fault? Isn't it the Israelis' fault? Isn't it the this, that, and the third's fault? I say to a degree. They say, well, why shouldn't we just support one side or the other? Why shouldn't the Muslims just go ahead and wholeheartedly support the Palestinian cause? Just be bold and speak out against those Jews. I said, well, you should first be sure that the one that you're calling the Jews are the culprits. I say, as I said, kind of sort of a minute ago, that both sides of the conflict are always supported by a hidden hand that is neither Palestinian nor Jew, neither German nor Jew, neither white slave master nor black slave. We think they're the ones controlling the strings, when there's always hidden powers, hidden influences that hide behind the scenes like the wizard in the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
We have to learn to pull that curtain back.
Yes.
And look at that little joker controlling all of the contraptions, making that thing breathe fire, you know. The thing we've been afraid of all of the time. We can't pay our rent. We can't pay our mortgage. We can't buy food. We can't buy gas. We can't buy, but they always leave little trinket people out front to blame. Oh, it's Biden's fault. Oh, it's because of what Trump said. Oh, it's, you know, they always leave these little distractions out in front of us for us to be able to take all of that pent up energy and throw it to them. They trust Trump. Deranged syndrome.
Yes.
They are developing diseases that we never have heard of before, you know, Trump derangement syndrome. And it's real. People have it for real.
Yeah.
And people are stuck on Biden no matter what he does. Your whole world is falling apart because of the guy you helped put in office. So we're always left with a person that we can point the finger at, you see? And in pointing the finger at that person, most of our energies are going to be dissipated in the direction of that person or those people. So for some people, it's the white people. Everything that's wrong in the world is the fault of the white people, but there was a hidden hand behind white racism.
Yes.
That came from way outside of America.
Yes.
Before America was created, that hidden hand was in the world dividing up other countries.
Yes.
In Africa, in India, other parts of Asia. There was still that same psychology being employed by people who hand that knowledge down generationally.
Yes.
So that's and that takes a lot of study. That's not an overnight. Let me look it up in World Encyclopedia and I'm with you, instructor. No, it doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes you have to trust the people who you say you trust to bring you proper information, because our whole job, as you know, doctor, is research.
Yes.
This is not a sideline thing for us. We don't work at the Burger King and then come home and study this.
No.
No, what we're studying, we're doing this full. I do this in my sleep. I come up with solutions in my sleep. Please.
Let me interject here.
Yeah, please.
Allah has turned my life around 20 years ago, so that he's given me full-time support for me to do nothing other than research.
Yes. That's what I'm
You
talking
see,
about.
that's why I have this firm conviction. I'm not a YouTube scholar here.
Right.
I don't just read the headlines. I don't just read the introduction or of a book. I read the
Right.
whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've read
Mm-hmm.
Will
Mm-hmm.
Durant's Civilization of History of
Yeah,
Civilization
those
twice.
volumes. Yeah. Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah.
You understand? Now, who is it? If that has clarified my vision, how can you compare what I know to the blind man who has had no chance to do that? Only goes to YouTube. There's no comparison.
None.
This is what you're saying.
This
So
is exactly what I'm saying.
so when people turn to us, first of all, they should know a little bit about us, and we should establish a track record that is trustworthy, in order to earn that trust. It shouldn't
Yes.
be just blindly given.
No, no,
No, not at
no.
all.
And if
But
you,
we do have
yeah,
to get to a
yeah,
point where we trust our
you
leaders.
have to, because this thing is moving down the track so fast that you don't have
Yeah,
time to study a book before you get on the train.
that's correct.
While you sit on the bench waiting on the train is coming.
Yeah,
You can't read all of those volumes. So why don't you just trust the people who have?
yeah,
Now if we turn out to be other than what we say we are, you have a right to dismiss us outright. No
of
matter how
course.
right what we're saying sounds. You have a right to dismiss us if you find out that we're child molesters or rapists or murderers. If you find those things out, oh, okay, well, I'm going to stop listening to that guy, no matter how nice he sounds. But if you don't find anything, but we have people who you can go to who know us. I have family members who my wife. People know my children. These are people who you can go ask them. Is your father really like that? I mean, is he really serious about what he said? Yes, he's really, really serious about what he's saying. So the point
by
is,
the way, let me just thank your wife, Karima,
yeah,
publicly here,
yes,
because she provided me this past week with some insights that I did not have before.
yes.
There's wisdom in a multitude of counselors.
My goodness.
And she's very well informed. Thank you very much.
Well, alhamdulillah, I knew that about her, and that's why I pushed very gently and kindly for you to pay attention to her and the information that she had to give, because I see what she does on a daily basis, and she is pulling many people out of the pit.
Yeah, I bet you see some miracles
away from the brink of the fire.
Yeah, of course.
Me included, twice. I was laying up like you were. Diabetes, just almost out of here. Incoherent, confusion, all of that.
Oh, wow.
And because it was the first time I was experiencing it, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I was flying on planes, not being able to find my way home after I got off the plane. I was in bad shape with the diabetes. And she came to the hospital, and I always tell this story, but she stood there with her daughter with her hands on her hips like Superwoman,
Yes.
I could have sworn in my head I saw the cape flapping in the wind behind her. And she said, the first thing I want you to do, Benjamin, is stop eating their food. I'm in the hospital. That's supposed to be treating me for diabetes. She said, look on your plate. What do you see? White rice, sugar sweetened applesauce. This is what they're giving the diabetic in the hospital. You see? So 90% of my plate was contributing to the disease that I was in the hospital for.
Yes.
She said, I will bring you food. 2 days later, doctor, I'm out. My blood levels are down and right. And I'm walking out of there like nothing ever happened. Just like you. I marvel at what happened to you. This time last week, even less time than that, you were having a heart attack and all kinds of other issues, cardiac issues and, breathing issue or whatever.
Yeah.
And here you are. I thought it would be weeks before we got back together to do this again. Meeting of the minds. Oh, my goodness. That's how I know Allah exists. All right, let me jump back into this so I can
go ahead.
Wrap up. But yes, kudos to Karima Medina Bilal. You'll be looking at this, I'm sure. And the doctor will or has given you the what they call the props.
This is the Al Ginkgo imprimatur.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
This is for your wonderful wife.
Alhamdulillah, and it's all a part of Allah's rahmah.
Yes.
In those signatures, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. which both encompass particular levels of mercy. One is
Yes.
quantitative mercy, Ar-Rahman, that's quantitative.
Yes.
That's Allah allowing you to have your stuff. Go ahead. Yeah. How much of that do you want? What
Mm-hmm.
quantity of would you like Adolf Hitler? He let Adolf Hitler have an army.
Yeah, of course.
He let the Zionists do what they do. Oh, okay. What do you want from? How many bombs do you need? How many? See, we don't see Allah as the one who allows, but the word allow and Allah are essentially the same word as far as
Mm-hmm.
Nunetics is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you are allowed something doesn't mean it's going to be good for you.
That's correct.
Sometimes our parents would allow us to do certain things that they knew were going to cause some level of damage or something, but they said you need to learn your lesson behind that.
Mm-hmm.
So they would allow it. Allah allows, but with this caveat that you have to be responsible for the results of your choices.
Yes.
So this is the age-old question that people have. If there's a God, why does he allow all of these bad things to happen?
Mm-hmm.
But who's doing those bad things to other human beings? There are other people calling themselves human beings. So
Yes.
you need to begin where the footprints begin
Mm-hmm.
and where the fingerprints are being found. And they're being found in the mismanagement of human nature and human purpose, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
When we were talking about the difference between goals and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Goals are just the incremental steps that you take towards your destiny. Now, the step is not the destiny. The step is that individual incremental goal that you have achieved on your way to the destiny. You might not ever make it to the destiny. That's why we call some of those goals your fate.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you choose in one way or another to stop there because that's so wonderful a place to be, even though it's not your destiny, it wasn't supposed to be the purpose of your journey.
Yes.
But you stopped there because there was a big butt woman there. And you liked looking at that big butt woman. So you kind of stayed there longer than you should have.
Yes, right.
Then something crazy happened to you.
Yeah.
Now your wife, you got to find out through a telegram or a phone call that you're in the hospital because you stayed a bit too long with a big butt woman who you never should have been with in the first place.
Exactly.
So that's how fate, and destiny work.
That's right.
Keep your eye on the prize, as the saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
And don't allow these distractions along the way towards your purpose, towards your destiny. Don't allow them to pull you off of as-sirat al-mustaqim.
Yes.
Don't allow them to do that. And that happens to us every day because we're following behaviors that are fatal. And, just to go to the Nunetics method for a moment, the word fate, F-A-T-E, with its consonants F and T, are related to the word pit. P and F are interchangeable. So PT and FT words are related.
Yes.
So those steps along the way towards your ultimate destiny are full of pitfalls.
Yes.
But it can just be a pit stop.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a pitfall. It can be just you're there just to gas up. It's a pit stop. You're running low on gas, you're running low on oil, and it's a long journey ahead of you. Well, I'm going to stop here as a pitfall. But one of the famous prophets in history, Yusuf, he was put into a pit.
Yes. Yes, he was.
He was put into a pit.
Mm-hmm.
But for him, it wasn't a pitfall. It was a pit stop.
Yes.
On his way to being the governor of Egypt.
Yes.
That was his destiny. All right. Now, going back to the Zionists, and I like to call them Zionists, the ones who are ruling behind the curtain.
Yes.
I don't like to call them Jews because when we hear Jew, we think religion.
Yes.
And the people that we're talking about couldn't give two. I wanted to cuss just now.
Yeah.
They don't care anything about God. They believe that they are God.
Yes.
Or they believe that they are doing the work of God because God rested.
Yes.
God got tired This is how they
Yes.
interpret their Torah.
Yes.
God
Yes.
got
That's right.
tired on the seventh day, he rested. And therefore, since he rested, let us make man in our image. And like that comes right after that story in the Bible when it says God rested on the seventh day. Then right after this, now let us make man in our image. That's what they're doing right now. When they tell you what the Palestinian is, a murderer, a terrorist, see, a slaughterer of our women, they're making man mind. They're conditioning the kind of mind that they need to be in the world in order to keep this manipulation operative. So it has nothing to do with the images and the narratives that they're painting concerning different people. And I can speak with authority because it has happened to so-called Black people since forever.
Yes.
This is what Black people are like. This is why we don't like to live next to Blacks. Yesterday it was we didn't like to live next to coloreds and Negroes. You know, whatever the language is, they're talking about the same people, but they have painted a vivid description of who we are so that even before you hear any words of even wisdom come out of our mouths, oh, that's just a nigger. That's just a nigga talk, and he ain't got no experience behind this. Why are they in the dumps? Why are they still? That's what they're saying now about the Palestinians. Well, why? What? Why are they living in the ghetto? What do you mean? Why are they living in the ghetto? You don't do any research. You don't understand that back in 1947, 1948, that they were given a mandate from the United Nations to go grab that land and call it their own and stand at the doors of those indigenous Palestinians with gun in hand and an army behind them and political rulers backing them militarily and monetarily. And boy, I like this house, Mr. Palestinian. Yeah, I think I'm going to take this house. What do you mean you're going to take this house? This is my house. We've lived here for generations. That's your problem. You got to find somewhere else to be. Yeah. This is our house now because this is our land. How is this your land? Because God promised us this land. Where? In the Bible. That's the trick right there. Yeah. There's no such promise in the Bible. And there are many religious Jews now who are standing up and voicing that truth.
Yes, God bless them.
Yes. The Hasidim, there are many now. You see them on YouTube, curls and all.
Yes.
Saying that these are not Jews as we are religious Jews. Our religion does not tell us that we can just go, my language, gank the land and the resources of other people. Our religion says we're supposed to wait until a particular moment when God will restore everything that we call home.
Yes.
And it's not this land, it's not this location, it's not this language that you're using. That's not the language that our religion promotes as Jews. That's not what Judaism, that's not what the Torah says. That's what these political liars are saying. And they have established Zionism, and Zionism, people, you need to understand this, which is the point I was making about the opportunistic diseases. Zionism is not a disease that purposes itself as being strictly local. Like we just want Israel and we'll leave the rest of the world alone. Would you just let us have this? No. Every military operation needs a base. So Israel becomes the base. But what is the intended outcome? Or in the language that we're using, what is their purpose? What do they see as their ultimate destiny? Their ultimate destiny is given in one word: expansionism.
Yeah.
Just like an opportunistic disease. I told you, it's not just after your heart. It'll be your heart now, then it'll be your liver, then it'll be your kidneys. Yeah. So they're motivated by expansionism. And if anyone is looking to understand that on a different level, just study the incremental movements that are being made by the Zionists and have been made by the Zionists since this whole thing appeared. It's a corruption that is unfathomable. Yeah. It's almost unexplainable how people who call themselves human beings could do this to other human beings. Yes. Other innocent. Nobody came and to their land. Nobody came to their land and took their stuff. They came to the land of the Palestinians and told them, you got to get out. You, granddad, grandma, great grandma, little baby, the pregnancy in the womb, all of you got to go. Where are we going to go? Wherever. You ain't going to go here because we want this house. We want this land. We want all of this opportunity. We don't want all of these resources, these houses now. Mine, 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 mine. And we're going to put you in this little, what they call the largest open air prison in the world. That's what they call Gaza.
Yeah.
People think because they can look up at the sky that they're free. The black slave could look up at the same sky and know that he was not free. So we're talking apples and oranges, and we're talking about the establishment of a particular psychology that was intended to allow for this kind of inhuman treatment of people. People don't know that all of the codes are actually in the language. And when you look at the word Zionist, it's from Zion because they want you to go to the Bible to figure out what that is. But the Zion of the Bible is not the Zionists of Israel. No, two different apples and oranges. But if you turn the word around, you can see a connection to the word Nazi.
Yes.
Zion, Nazi. ZN, NZ, going the other way. Right?
The Nazi is in the Hebrew language. It's similar to it represents what they call it's a description of their chief high priest. He's called the Nazi.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And Allah tries to give us some information on it when He gives us a term in the Quran called An-Nas.
Yes,
we'll talk about that on a different day.
Of course.
Don't let that guy get away with all he's getting away with either. An-Nas.
May our listeners understand this? No.
Yeah. So we're talking about the difference between a political or a politically motivated mind and the innocent, religiously motivated minds who are our fellow believers in a source creator. We're talking now about the Jews who adhere to their scripture. And by their scripture, I'm not talking about the Talmud. Here's the other problem. I'm talking about those who adhere to the Torah. What's the difference, Instructor Bilal? The difference is the same as believing in the hadiths, as overruling the Quran.
Yes, it's the same.
Yeah. Most of what the corruptors of Judaism are doing, they're pulling that out of the Talmud, including child molestation.
Yes.
They have people able to marry 3-year-olds, adults able to marry 3-year-old boys and girls and have relationships with them. Because they say, well, the rabbis got together and decided that our God, who's rested, of course, so we have to pick up where he left off. He didn't tell us all of this, of course. So we had to begin becoming inventive based on what we think God might have approved. And I think he might have approved this in the interest of protecting our children. If we marry them, they're under our rule. They're under our protection. You see how slick that?
That's slick.
I wanted to cuss again.
Yeah, that's slick.
That's the serpent. That's the devil. That's the demon. See, that's Shaitan operating through people who are no longer human. Just a couple of more points.
Yes, go ahead.
Also, dear audience, research the history of the people that are called Khazars. Khazarian. Khazarian. Khazarian or Khazars. These are people who are not out of Israel proper. They're not out of any land that the Bible or the Quran speaks about as being belonging to somebody, conferred upon somebody by God. Right? These are people who are, they were under a totally different kind of religious idea. When the idea for converting to Judaism was brought to their king in the interest of some political advantages. Yeah, pardon me one more. I just need to close this door. I don't know if that background noise is coming.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. If you study the history of the Khazars, you'll understand also the use of the word Kagan. You'll have many Jews in position of power now, and they use this name, Kagan.
Yeah.
And it comes from Khazaria. And
that's right.
I agree with you. And listen, I learned most of what I know about the Khazarians by reading books written by Jews.
Yes.
Who have exposed it.
Yes.
Yeah, and who
Yeah,
reject the thesis that they are the so-called children of
that's right.
Abraham.
That's right.
Ethnically, no,
Yeah,
it cannot be. Genetically, no, they're never children of
that's
Abraham in that
right.
sense. And you've talked about this before,
Yes,
so
indeed.
we don't need to stop there. But go ahead.
Yeah. So
What is your point about the Khazars,
I want to nunetically link that word Hazar to a Quranic word called
please?
khinzir.
Hmm.
Khinzir,
Hmm.
with the only difference being the addition of the letter nun, N, in
Ah,
khinzir. If you take
okay.
the nun out, it's Hazar,
Hmm.
and it's translated as pig.
Is that
Now,
so?
yeah, now
Oh my God.
is Allah referring to the Khazars?
Ah,
If you accept my interpretation, is he referring to
okay.
the Jewish people
Yeah,
as
yeah.
pigs?
Well, that's a
Something that
tremendous
they,
appetite, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah, okay. No, he's not, and I have to say this in less than 60 seconds because we got some workers coming into the house who are actually in the house.
Okay.
But
Yes.
the point is that the pig reference is not saying that these people are pigs. You know, in the Quran, Allah says to a particular group of people, "Be ye apes and swine."
Yes.
But he's not talking literally.
No, of
He's
course not.
talking about behaviors.
Yes.
So on the surface of the pig's behavior is gluttony, greed,
Yes.
wallowing in the mud,
Yes.
making strange sounds with his nose,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, right?
Of course.
So no, it's not talking about Jews per se. It's talking about any people who fit that description,
Yes.
and that can be and is right now in the world. That description is it's under many people are fitting that description right now. The
Yes.
Germans fit it when they were putting the Jews in the Nazi camps.
Yes.
The so-called white man of the South, mostly of the
Yes.
southern region of America, he fit the position of the pig attitude
Yes.
and mentality when he was doing what he did. He
Yes.
was gluttonous.
Yes.
And understand that that's not even the real nature of the pig. The pig is a very lovely animal when you study him up close and personal. You
Hmm.
just don't eat him. That's all Allah said. Don't eat
Yeah.
him.
Right. Yeah.
But what he does for your farm is tremendous. you know.
Yes.
So these are descriptions of behaviors. Is the point.
Yes.
So it's the behavior that we have to fight against. And I'll leave you with this one word that was invented by the people who understand Hebrew in a way that most people have never learned. And I've given this word before. One of their famous words that has been adopted into the systems of magic is abracadabra.
Yes.
And abra means I speak.
Hmm.
Kadabra means it comes to be.
Yes.
Yeah. So what these are people. Now, this last point, but it's the most important point this morning.
Yes.
I speak, and therefore it comes into existence, is dealing with this science of language and the power of language, that if you just repeat something over and over and over, even if it did not exist, that repetition, the repetition of those frequencies. Now imagine the might and the weight and the power of media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Global media to keep repeating that. We know right now that the lines that are going to be repeated on the 6 o'clock news in New York is going to be repeated not only all over the country, but all over the world.
Yeah.
Literally, it's a script. The same words. What are they doing? They're doing word magic.
Yes. They're bringing this thing into existence in occult
Yes.
terms. That is called the egregore. And
Yes.
there are cults that sit in a circle and they do this mantra over and
Yes.
over and over again to cement their own fellowship for that purpose. All
Yeah.
right. And then they take this out in the community and then they
Yes.
repeat the mantra. They
Yes.
repeat the
Yes.
mantra.
That's
It
right.
becomes like a jellyfish, It just
Yeah. And then
keeps on going out there.
Allah
Yeah.
shuts it down in the Quran with a phrase of his own, kun fayakun.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Be and it becomes. So inshallah, we'll pick up there next week. I'll explain
Inshallah.
the
Thank you so
intricacies
much,
of that.
brother.
Thank you,
I
man.
know you get
Listen, I
on
thank
with your
Allah.
well,
Thank Allah for you
alhamdulillah. You
being here,
get on
man.
with your
It's
day and may Allah prosper you. Wassalamu alaikum wa
yeah.
rahmatullahi wa
And looking forward to
barakatuh.
seeing you and Dr. Ramahi on Saturdays. Yeah, Saturday.
Yes, inshallah,
So
we'll get it
audience,
set
look
up.
out for that. Look out for
Yes,
that
yeah, that's
replay.
going to be pretty dynamic.
Oh yeah. All
Yeah.
right. All right. Speak to you soon.
Till then, brother. Bye.
Yes, sir. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.